Welcome to Beans and Breakdowns, a podcast dedicated to bridging the gap between specialty coffee and the heavy music community. On this episode, I'm joined by promoter and creator of Extensive Enterprise, Dave Boucher. So grab a fresh cup of coffee and wake the fuck up! Well, what's going on, Caffeinated crew? Today I'm joined by the mind and the matter behind Extensive Enterprise here in Montreal. Dave, how are you doing this morning?
I'm great. A little tired. We're recovering from my long weekend.
Yes.
But, ready to jump into it.
We had a great weekend in Montreal. Friday, we had Stick to Your Guns with Kubla Khan and the boys in Koyo, as well as some other acts that, of course, are really good. But noteworthy for me is Kubla Khan and Koyo because I've talked to people from that band. So it was a lot of fun.
Alumni.
Yes, the Caffeinated crew alum. But yeah, a lot of fun. Always great shows coming through with Extensive Enterprise. So thanks for that.
Hey, you're welcome. Thank you for coming. Thanks to everyone who came to that show and made it such a success and wonderful evening.
Yes.
Great music.
Great music, like great venue.
A 5-band show where all the bands were great. So that, that was that's a plus too.
I had never seen Belmont before, so that was pretty awesome as well.
Yeah, I think I've done maybe 1 or 2 shows for that band before. I think they were on like a Silverstein show pre-pandemic. And no, that band's really tightened up and put on a great show. And they're coming back in December. I don't know if I'm supposed to let that cat out of the bag yet, but probably by the time this gets online, that show will be announced and on sale and such.
If not, you heard it here first.
There you go. Hot scoop.
Well, what are you drinking this morning?
Drinking a filter coffee from Columbus Cafe, which I've lovingly referred to now as the Spirit Halloween of cafes. They've just been coming into like Starbucks locations and taking over. I think they're like from France. Coffee's okay. It's like, Starbucks level coffee. So I don't even know if the barista gave me a light roast, a dark roast.
Oh, wow.
Didn't even ask.
It's a mystery.
So, it's a mystery, hey.
The Spirit Halloween of cafes is probably because I've been thinking like that used to be a Starbucks and now it's a Columbus, or that used to be a Second Cup and now it's a Columbus.
Yeah. There's like a good 4 or 5 of them where they've just like taken over other cafes. Mm-hmm. And like most recently was I noticed they took over the Starbucks on Crescent in St. Catherine.
That was a Starbucks, wasn't it? I thought it was a different cafe.
There's one that's across the street from the venue that we did Stick to Your Guns at that was a Starbucks, and now is a Columbus. And the one that I got this coffee from near my office was a Starbucks before. So, I mean, hey, good business model.
It is. Probably
move in there. It's like pre-established. People know there's a cafe there. They probably have some of the equipment still in there. It's an easy fix for them.
I haven't tried the coffee yet. I've been on the website and it was maybe a little confusing for me in terms of like if it's a specialty coffee shop or if it's more like a second cup.
It seems like it's more second cuppy Starbucks, but they seem to rely heavily on their muffins and making stuff with speculoos. They just put speculoos in their yogurt parfaits and like muffins and croissants. So yeah.
What is speculoos?
It's like I don't know if it's from the Netherlands or it's Danish. It's like a cookie paste. Oh. You'd see it in Trader Joe's. It's kind of like a cinnamon cookie just ground into a spread.
Ah.
And people put that on everything, so it seems.
Well, I might have to check that out because I had never heard of that before. But I've seen they have lots of smoothies and like frappes. And,
yeah. They have like you walk in there and they have like paninis and everything and coffee. That's what it feels like.
Cool. Maybe like a good lunch spot then.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I'm drinking a coffee from Relay Coffee Roasters. It's a Mexican Chiapas coffee. It is from Hamilton, Ontario, the fabulous town of Hamilton. It's got some cacao, brown sugar, and walnut. When I brewed it, all I could smell was like it's not cinnamon, like cardamom.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a
That sounds delicious.
spicy, sugary coffee. It's pretty good. Well, cheers.
Cheers.
Um, I know that you got your coffee from Columbus, but you live in an area that is just flush with wonderful cafes.
Yes, we have Dispatch, Neve, Myriad.
What's your go-to? Because I love the first one you mentioned, Dispatch is one of
Dispatch. Yeah, I'm partial to Neve just because
okay.
it's like around the block from my house. I love the staff and the owners there, and yeah, it was kind of like I moved into the plateau. Was coming from NDG, and then I was like, well, I need my morning coffee spot, and kind of tried the. I think when I moved there, Dispatch hadn't even opened though, so it was. I forget the name of it. It's still there. There's that cafe that's on the corner of Saint Laurent and Marianne. That or no, Rachel. Sorry, Rachel.
Okay.
Just like a very by the numbers cafe. Like tried it. Wasn't a big fan. And then, went to Neve, and that became my spot. And I've been going there pretty much daily for the better part of 7-8 years now.
I've passed
but
by
all those other ones. Yeah. Like I'm really spoiled. If one is like is closed for the day, and one opens at 9, one opens at 8. I can kind of bounce around, and Teta recently opened. That's a great one too. That's in my hood.
Do you like that one?
It's really good. It's everything that they have there is awesome. Their teas are great.
I've tried their Turkish coffee the first time that I passed by, and maybe I'm just not a Turkish coffee person.
Yeah.
But the beans that they use is from Structure, which is one of my favorite like roasters in Montreal. So
is that the one that's like in St. Henry?
So they roast at that Dreamy or the Roasting Society.
Okay.
But their shop is on McGill and like Notre Dame, I think.
Okay.
So they're like in the Old Port-ish area.
But as you were mentioning, cardamom.
Yes.
Like a lot of their coffees definitely have that taste to it.
Very heavy cardamom flavors.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you tried Barbassa right around there?
Doesn't ring any bells.
It's at the bottom floor of the Diving Bell next to Blue Dog.
Okay, no, never.
Okay, it's a pretty good. They have like a coffee bar in the front, and then at night it's like a jazz club kind of vibe. But they do like a mango lassi as well with like some other like natas and stuff like that. But they do a cold brew with cardamom.
I'm gonna have to make a trek.
It's crazy
down the block.
It's pretty good. Yeah. The guy who runs it's super nice guy. I'm blanking on his name, but very, very, very nice person.
Add it to the rotation.
Yes. To the 20 other shops that you have.
Exactly.
Walking distance. Well, we've talked before. You're a promoter. You bring lots of amazing shows to the Montreal area.
Thank you.
And kind of before we get into the intricacies and all the things, just a personal question would be the first band that you brought to Montreal that was kind of a bucket list band.
A bucket list band? Sorry, getting put on the spot here. I was pretty lucky because I got to bring bands. A lot of promoters like start by doing local shows and kind of work their way up. And like I was doing touring acts like from the get go. Like my first 2 shows were Buried Alive, In My Eyes Reach the Sky, and then Ensign. And then I was starting to book like a lot of the Trustkill and Ferret bands. And at the time, like there was that Belgian label Good Life. That's like somewhat obscure, but they had they put out the first Poison Well EP.
Okay, yeah.
I'm hoping I'm getting it right. I think they put out the first Sky King Falling EP also, and Saves the Day I did pretty early on in the game, and Fast Break, and so for me, I can't just pick one, but I got to book a lot of the bands I was listening to pretty early on in my promoting career. So I was pretty lucky in that respects. And then, a couple years when I started doing more of like the metal stuff, we spoke about this. how, like I started booking stuff like Sepultura and
Yeah.
Mayhem and all these like these bands that I listened to when I was like a teenager. Even like I did one of the Jerry Only Misfits shows, and as like a 14, 15-year-old kid, those are pretty seminal bands
Yeah.
growing up, and like
For
and
sure.
then eventually here I am 10, 15 years later, booking these bands and seeing these guys walk around backstage, and that's where it started to become a trip sometimes, where I
Right.
was like, oh my god, like I had this guy's poster on my wall, and I remember saving up my allowance to buy like this band's like album at the record store. It's so that's like it was a pretty a mind trip for me.
Right. And so kind of getting into being a promoter and starting Extensive, was it something that you more or less stumbled into or always wanted to do?
Fully stumbled into. Didn't really know that like that's something like it never really crossed my mind. It was I was asked by bands to just do shows, because I was traveling a lot, because a lot of the bands I liked at the time just weren't coming to Montreal.
Right.
They would stop in Toronto, they'd stop in Burlington, Vermont, they'd stop in Albany, New York. So, we were driving 5-6 hours to go see these bands. And we started to get recognized, like, oh, those are the guys from Montreal. And I just started talking with some of them, and they're like, hey, you should book shows for us. And luckily, like these bands were, I got in at a time when hardcore metalcore was just starting to become like legit. And, these bands were touring. For the most part, they were a lot of weekend warrior type of bands,
Right.
where everybody held day jobs and they could only play shows on weekends. And everything was pretty much in driving distance. So, like that's how it kind of began. And so I stumbled into it fully. I didn't really have any aspirations to do it, and just did it. And I was really lucky that my first show was a success.
Right.
And from there, I was able to, like, it was like a ripple effect. The bands told other bands who told other bands, and before I knew it, my inbox started getting clogged with, "Hey man, can you book our band?" And I was off to the races.
And this is before the time of like pretty heavy social media, right? This is more like exchange an email or something.
I mean, yeah, like Hotmail, which I held on to for a long, long time. I'm trying to think if there was any kind of like, I definitely predated MySpace and Friendster. There was no social media. Like so I started doing shows in '99, and it was pretty much at the dawn of the internet, so to speak. Like before that, people were booking shows like via telephone,
right?
And so I kind of came in, like I was really lucky where I was like, okay, now there's like a whole infrastructure that you can contact bands and rate them in real time, pretty much, and work out details with them that way.
Right. So you start building a Rolodex.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, if you're listening and you don't know what a Rolodex is, it was this thing that was you put cards in with like people's numbers and contact info, kind of how you have in your phone, but it was like a physical paper thing. Yeah.
All the paper stuff, like MapQuest for directions.
Oh my God.
And bands just have like these 10-page printouts of how to get to the venue, and
like direction, like turn by turn, and you got somebody in the passenger
and I would just
seat.
and if you're lucky, the band you were booking had a cell phone, so you could just stand outside the venue with your cell phone. So if they were circling the block trying to find the place, you direct them. And back then, it was always a thing. It's like, is the band going to get over the border? Is the band going to get over the border? And like sometimes, because it was at the beginning of cell phones too. Like maybe they show up, maybe they don't. Let's kind of hold your breath and see. And man, so many times that we'd book these shows, and whatever I put out the flyer, and then the show that would end up happening would be completely different. Bands would drop off, bands would get over the border, it was really quite hilarious that it was just like you're playing Russian roulette basically coming to these shows. You're like, maybe I'll get to see what I paid for, maybe not.
So what you're saying is that we're spoiled now. Everybody's just spoiled.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure like people 10, 15 years before me who were doing shows were like, oh, those kids in the early 2000s, late 90s, they were spoiled brats too. So
they had it made.
It's always that thing. So, now I'm like the angry old man, shouting at the sky.
Yes. Always talking down to the generation after,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. You have no idea how good you got it now.
Well, I know that you were an avid showgoer. I grew up a scene kid and am
Mhm.
still pretty avid as a showgoer. Always griping about the venues. Is there a
Yes.
barricade for terror? Is there gonna be state? You know, is the security gonna be assholes? What
Mhm.
determines how you find the venue for a show?
Um, Obviously, we try to, like for me personally, I always try to put myself in the ticket buyer's
Right.
pants, or shoes.
Wow.
That's a better one. In their shoes,
Yes, not their pants.
not their pants. And just be like, where do I want to see this band play? Do
Right.
I want to see them in a dingy, dirty venue, or do I want to see them in a nice upscale concert hall? Do I want to see them in the basement of a skate shop or under a overpass? That's how we try to approach every show. Sometimes it can't work.
Right.
Venue availabilities, especially now with everybody coming out of the pandemic. There's just so many bands touring. You have these bands still trying to make up their tour dates from 2020, 2021 that got derailed,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just this game of first choice, second choice, third choice, fourth choice. Sometimes like you have to take what you can get, but we always try to kind of match the band with the type of venue.
Right.
Prog bands, it's like, okay, well, I got to make sure the sound is pristine. Like if it's a hardcore show, I got to make sure, like, hey, like our kid's gonna break their limbs if they jump off this 8-foot stage.
At
Like
foofs.
at Foos. So it's always a matter of like, who's the band, what's the fan base, and we start from there and
Mm-hmm.
then try to work our way into a place where we feel like, okay, this is the best room for the band.
Right.
And sometimes some bands even have requests. They're like, hey, we played this room and we really liked it and we want to do our show there. Like Terror, the last time we did a headliner for them, we did it at Fairmount, and it's the best Terror show I ever did. And I've been booking that band literally since the demo tape, and
Mm-hmm.
we all kind of agree, like, all right, this is the place now. This is where we're going to do the Terror shows. Like, this is it, And there's tons of other bands that are like that too, where
Right.
it's like, hey, like August Burns Red, we've been doing them at Mtellus for what feels like a decade.
Right.
And it's like they told me numerous times, it's like, hey, this is one of our favorite venues in the world. So they're about to embark on like an anniversary tour, and it's like, hey, no brainers to do it at Mtellus, So
Is
try.
Is it the Constellations 20 year? Is it already?
I think it's the band's 20th anniversary.
Okay.
Is what
I was
it
about
is.
to say, I didn't think I was that old yet.
I think it's the 20th anniversary. It makes sense. Like they've been like, it's happening more and more lately where these records turn 10 and like, I'm like, what? Like,
Yeah.
I thought that record came out like 5-6 years ago. Nope. Like
Yeah.
time is flying by. And
Like Discovering the Waterfront, I think, isn't this Silverstein tour coming up? Like 20 years of.
no, that one happened. That was a just before the pandemic. I
Oh my
want to say
God.
we did the 20th anniversary tour like the February 2020.
Yeah.
This is just like them supporting a new record. Like like the last couple of plays we did with them were, with 10th anniversary for this record, the 15th
Yeah,
anniversary
it's
for this record.
terrible
Yeah,
because it makes you feel so old.
oh, so old, so old. Now that we're in like these scene records and these deathcore records are like turning 10 or about to turn 10. I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like this is
I've been out of high school for how long?
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, I've been doing this for how long? Like brutal.
Yeah. I know that you mentioned some like hardcore kids hurting themselves jumping off the stage.
Yeah,
A big part of the scene in general is moshing
yeah,
and stage diving and just chaos at certain points.
yeah.
So in terms of like liability, and this is more of like an adulting question, I think,
Yeah.
like being 30 and watching all this happen, and
Yeah.
who's kind of responsible for like, deciding if somebody gets hurt or how that happens,
Yeah,
like liability wise.
We have insurance, like
Mhm.
we purchase insurance for shows to cover like, injury, knock on wood.
Right.
I haven't had any anything really seriously happen other than, some broken noses, black eyes,
Yeah.
you know, dislocated this, dislocated that, a couple of broken bones. Those are like the worst of it. So, I can't really say like I haven't gone through any worst case scenarios. So it's, kids for the most part, even though these shows do from an outsider's looking in seem very violent and chaotic, kids for the most part take care of themselves, and they are somewhat aware of their surroundings. Sometimes kids get careless, get carried away, and jump off things that they should be jumping off of, and smack the floor, and bad things happen, but nothing catastrophic. So
Right.
in that case, I've been really, really, really lucky.
Yeah, that's good. I do agree that like it is a community, like whether you're in the metal scene or the hardcore scene or anywhere in between, that people as violent or as crazy as it might look, there's a rhythm to it and there's an understanding basically.
It's very self-policing. People take care of each other for the most part. It shows, like there's disagreements, like happened at Stick to Your Guns. There was a little bit of a melee, and some shoving, and it took care of itself, and everybody like went back to smacking each other within a few minutes. Like it's we a lot of times, like when we go into a new room, security will be like, what is going on here? What are you doing? You're like, it looks like to them, it looks like an uncaged UFC fight.
Yeah.
And I have to tell them like, hey, it's going to look like you should step in, you should intervene, but don't. Like it'll take care of itself for the most part. If we do need you, we will come get you. And those seem to be the smoothest running events when we are able to have that. Security is absolutely a very important part of show going. And I'm a big proponent. I like security at my shows, and I love it when they, let people take care of themselves, and when they're needed, that's when they step in.
Right.
And we're lucky that a lot of the venues we work with have great security teams. We have like longstanding relationships with a lot of venues, and we get along great with all the security supervisors. And like I'm saying that there's usually never issues at our shows. A lot of security teams and venues just as a whole really like doing our shows because they're relatively a headache-free evening for everybody involved.
Right. Yeah. Usually if there's beef, it's squashed
very quickly.
So yeah,
for the most part.
It was funny because even at the show Friday, like me and some friends were like watching Koyo as a stage dive band. In case anybody listening to the podcast has not heard, Koyo, first of all, go listen to the episode with Harold, and then go listen to their music because it's 100% stage dive. Like you don't really mosh, you just pile up, stage dive. And so the first stage dive happens during Koyo, and then a security guard goes up to, and it's somebody that goes to shows regularly, goes up and was like, "Don't do that." And I was like, "What do you mean don't stage? Like don't stage dive?" Like
yeah, because they like I had a security meeting beforehand, and I kind of ran through it really quick. And yeah, they're not like, of course, obviously most like that venue in particular does a lot more like mainstream rock and pop acts, and so I'm sure the 98% of the shows that they do in that venue, it's like no one on stage, like get them off right away type of thing.
Yeah.
In this particular thing, it's like it's encouraged and they want that. And so
they're like asking to get on stage.
Like, because I was like, hey, it's gonna get pretty rowdy. People are gonna mosh and stage dive and and I thought we had like an understanding, like don't throw these kids out, and had to just reiterate it. And then like after that, there was no problems.
It was chill.
Yeah. We just like, hey, they can stay. Like, don't worry about it. And yeah, luckily that one ended with not much drama.
Yeah, it was a good night. Like I said, it was a lot of fun, a lot of like super, super good energy. So yeah, it was fun. I didn't see any scuffles. I must have missed the one during.
I was getting towels for Stick to Your Guns, and I just saw this security scurrying around, and there's a fight. And I was like, oh shit. Like I had to go in there and mediate, and pull the two offending aggressors aside for a second, and be like, calm down, and everything worked out. They both went back into the pit, and I didn't hear or see anything about it afterwards. So
hug it out, bitch.
Yeah.
So you've been booking shows since '99, which I haven't even been going to shows since '99 because
Mm.
I'm just a little bit younger than you. But how have you seen the Montreal kind of like hardcore and metal scene evolve?
Um, it's like it probably every scene, you know. It's like trends, and certain things get really big, certain things fall off. So it's like when I started doing shows, it was kind of at the infancy of metalcore.
Hmm.
Like Youth Crew was having
Yeah.
its moment, like all the Revelation bands at the time, like the 10 Yard Fights and the Fast Breaks and the In My Eyes and the Floor Punches and stuff like that. And then you had the rise of the scene bands, the Atreus, the Taking Back Sundays, and then it's very ebb and flow. And then you had like the rise of like deathcore, which
Yeah.
was like a huge thing here because of bands like Despised Icon and Ion Dissonance and Beneath the Massacre, and and it's now I don't even like it's. No, I would go so far as I don't want to use the word fractured, but it's just like there seems to be so many subgenres.
Hmm.
You have all these different types of like little niches. Like you have your more very traditional hardcore stuff. You have like your death metal like stuff. I was trying like how do I like hardcore kids that just grew their hair out and play like
No, like that's and
caveman
that's
death metal, and
like I'm wearing a 200
yeah,
stab wound
exactly.
shirt. Like
That's like that whole scene I'm like in love with because it really just like combines two things that I love: those
yes,
breakdowns and like Cookie Monster, Food Processor
hardcore
vocals.
kids playing slam.
Exactly, which is awesome. And you have like that whole scene of like stuff like Ice Nine Kills and Bad
Hmm.
Omens and Dayseeker that seems to be doing really well. So it's just like I find, and it's funny because like I started doing shows right before music became free on the internet, and that was like a big eye opener when like looking back, where I was like, man, like you could see when these like file sharing softwares came out and like kids just started like getting into all sorts of different kinds of music, and you had
Right.
all these different subgenres popping up and stuff like that. So it was really interesting to see like like how that had an effect on shows. Like shows just got bigger too, like and you could discover like discovering bands was just so much easier, like back when I was a kid, like you had to like save up money and buy a record and like, oh, please be good, like you judge it on the artwork, and
Hmm.
you go through the thanks list, and that's how you try new bands and stuff like that. Whereas like a few years later, it was just open up a thing, just type in a band, and there you go. You
Yeah.
can sample it right there, and MySpace had their like embedded player in there, and like you could look at their top 8, and you could discover new bands that way. So yeah, that's kind of, it was like a pros and cons. That was like one of the better things that came about. Music being put out for free. I feel like it enabled a lot more bands to be able to tour because like kids were discovering music.
Right. And we're
But
willing
it
to
felt
pay.
like, yeah, it felt for the boatload, and
Yeah.
that's how it kind of it seemed to explode almost.
Yeah.
Like I went
Like
from doing one show a month, one show every 2 months to like started to be like, okay, we're doing 5 or 6 a month, we're doing 2 or 3 a week, and yeah, like everybody can tour now, it seems.
mhm. Yeah, like it's crazy in Montreal because I was working a lot when I moved here, like outside. I was going to the States, like back and forth for work. And so pre-pandemic, I wasn't going to a lot of shows. I think I went and saw Jesus Piece, and I saw Knocked Loose on that
Mm-hmm.
headliner they came through on, and like some other bigger ones, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was always like, well, I don't see a lot of bands coming through because I wasn't super connected. But
Yeah.
post-pandemic, it's like, the same night as Stick to Your Guns, Ghost was playing in town.
No Effects was playing in
No
town.
Effects was right down the street.
Yeah, and like like even in the Saturday there was like that bridge. There was 2 bridge shows. There was like there was the Scorching Two, I think played it, or Category 514, and then
I was at the Category
yeah,
514. It was Primal Horde, Shutaway,
yeah.
Scaramanga, and
Oh yeah, so yeah, so I just could like I know like a lot of those bands play with
yes.
each other and stuff, but then like No Waves was like a little bit further
Oh,
down.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, like like under that same overpass, like a couple blocks down they were playing, and but yeah, like every night there's something else, like this week or last week, sorry, there was like In Flames one night, Lagwagon, like we did Zealand Hardware on the Thursday, and then
Yeah.
Stick to Your Guns on the Friday, and you said Ghost and No Effects, and there was like this Music for Cancer Fest in St. Thérèse that was this weekend, and then there was Envolé Macadam.
Yeah,
Like
Envolé
Terror came
Macadam.
back in and played Quebec City. Like there's a lot of shows. There's
Yeah.
a lot of shows right now.
I've never been in a situation where I had to pick like what
Yeah,
show I wanted to go to
yeah.
on a night.
It's which is crazy. You're like, and I like. There's times like now we're booking 2-3 shows a night sometimes, and like a lot of our colleagues are in the same boat where it's like, hey, we're doing a show at Fairmount, we're doing a show at Ritz, we're doing a show at Sat. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy how much there is out there for a ticket buyer to choose from.
Yeah. And I came up in the MySpace era, like what you were saying, is when I started going to shows. I was 100% like a scene kid on MySpace. Like, and when you would find friends and listen to their like,
what's their like sound, whatever. I forget, like there was a term for it, but
it was like their profile song or some shit like that. Yeah. It was like the first one. Of course, mine's like Under Oath or some shit like that.
And then people are putting like "See You Next Tuesday" on there, and oh god.
And then you find like the one deathcore kid at your school or something, and like, oh god, what is this?
What's your favorite band? And then before you know it, he's dragging you to go see Suicide Silence or As Blood Runs Black.
Yeah, exactly. As Blood Runs Black. I was about to.
Yeah. We were booking all those bands at Under. Like honestly, like that was a really fun time as a booker too, because like that was like. I felt like it was like one of the stronger periods in Montreal. Like every kid had a band. It was insane. Like we were doing shows with 5-6 local bands, and then we were doing a touring show and like with a 5-band tour package with 2 openers, like local openers. Like we had these 7-8 band. Like in hindsight, like I was just like, oh, what was I putting these people through?
Like every Saturday there's a matinee show.
Yeah, no, or just like we would just like do doors at 5, show at 6. Everybody's playing 20 minutes, and
nice.
Oh god, it was those were long days, and you had all those like touring mini festivals. You had Summer Slaughter, you had All Stars, you had Scream the Prayer, Thrash and Burn, Scream It Like You Mean It, like all these like 7-8 band bills, like
yeah. Scream the Prayer was. When I saw it, it was like 10 bands, and then there were like 3. There was like a mini fest before, so it was like 4 local bands opened.
Yeah.
It was like, oh my god.
Some of these venues have like 2 rooms in there, and then you'd have the local stage going, and then you start the tour package, like early evening, late afternoon. Yeah. Oh God, I don't miss that.
I don't. Yeah, it was definitely cool at the time when I was like younger and my back didn't hurt all the time.
Yeah, you're just like clutching your knees and like your feet hurt, and
yeah. Now it's like I go to 2 4-band bills in a row in a week, and I'm done. Like,
toast. Yeah, yeah. Like I really hope that the 3-band package really becomes a thing going forward. A couple bands are doing that, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, like like the See You Space Cowboy show, I thought was like perfect.
Yeah. Like I was just like, oh, just 3. I think we had like 3 bands and a local opener, and that's perfect.
Yeah,
great evening. You're home by 11:30. If you want to go out afterwards, you can. But people like me who just want to be in bed by 12.
Yeah, by midnight. Yep.
Great.
Yeah, that's why I'm like some of my friends. We were talking about the Loathe tour package because it's 4 bands. And they're not doing any like local openers on that tour.
Yeah, I feel like a jerk when kids reach out and I'm like, sorry, no locals. Like
and it's understandable, but like some of the diehard locals are like, what do you mean?
You want to get on it? Yeah.
Like,
I'm just like, I can't.
Just buy tickets, go enjoy the show. Like, you don't have to play the show to go to the show.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of those tours, they're just like so self-contained, and they're regimented. Like they run the same schedule every day, and they don't fuck with it. And and they're just like, hey, get in at this time. We load it at this time. We sound check at this time. We do doors at this time. We like first band this, show's done. But I'm gonna go on the next show. So it's
right.
Sometimes it's like can't even add a local because of that.
When then I know like Loathe is running pretty heavy, like in-ear rig with like tracks, and they're pretty intense when it comes to their like live sound. So I can completely understand that.
Yeah, it's like, hey, they got to get in there and tweak stuff for 3-4 hours.
Yeah,
before the show gets going, and
dial their light. I know they've got a lighting guy that's probably going with them and stuff. So
yeah, and like a lot of that, like those light shows are they're timed to the minute, to the second.
Yep. They're time coded. Yeah,
to their shows. So nothing personal, kids. I'd love to book your bands, but sometimes I just can't help you.
Don't be bitter. Go support.
Yeah.
Top 3 bands on the rise. What do you have?
Oh my god! I'm gonna cheat. I'm gonna open my that new Tribal Gaze record is blowing my mind.
Yo, Tribal Gaze, that them opening for I had never heard of them before.
Yeah.
They were one of my like favorite bands of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that EP is great. It's really,
Mhm.
really good. But the record that they just dropped is amazing. There's so many like sick riffs on it.
Yeah,
That's
his
so,
vocals are great too, like super powerful, like
yeah,
classic death metal vocals.
yeah, exactly. No, that's a really, really good one. What else am I into lately? That Ingrown record I really,
Oh,
really
yeah.
like. That's a good one.
It's a nice grindcore
Yeah,
crossover.
yeah. With a New Inclination record, I really enjoy as well. They've been around for a few years.
I've slept on that one actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I haven't given that one a fair because I've been listening to a bunch of bands coming through. Honestly,
Yeah, and there's just so much. Like even just there's so much music coming out. Like just on Friday, there was like the new Devil Wears Prada record came out.
Mhm.
There's like the Electric Callboy record came out. The probably being a promoter, I got to stay on.
I
top
know
of this
that.
stuff. And, but full disclosure, it's pretty catchy.
No, I mean they've got some crazy hooks, but it's
Yeah.
like they're German, right? So
Yes,
they're gonna have like that club style.
Yes, it's very Euro. There's that Phobophilic record came out also. That's really good. No, there's Behemoth put out a record too on
That's
Friday.
unbelievable.
There's so much. What else have I been into lately? That last Bite record, quite enjoyable. The Thornhill.
That one is with Baby. Yeah. So the new Spite drummer is the drummer from Amir.
Oh,
and so he's like their sound. I feel like has changed so much because he's joined the band. He's just ripping.
Yeah, I got this like weird kind of like deathcore, new metal kind of Lamb of God thing going on. That's quite good. Yeah, so that's what I've been like listening to lately, and like all those like new wave death metal bands, the 200 Stab Wounds, the Frozen Souls, the Flesh Rot, Body Box, all that kind of stuff.
Box. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Sorry, you asked for 3 and I gave you like 10.
Yeah, like, it's great though.
I love music. I'm always trying to listen to new stuff. That Alpha Wolf split with Thor with
Holding Absence. That was unbelievable to me. I love that.
Yeah, like the fact that they do a song together, like and their original songs are great. But yeah, there's so much awesome stuff. When I being 44 years old and some of my friends are like, there's no good band. I'm like, man, you are tripping. You are out of your fucking mind. There's too much stuff. Like every day I find something new that's like exciting and, makes me like, I want to book this band. I hope this band tours, like Omerta, who I was vaguely familiar with. And then we had them on that Space Cowboy show. And I was like, holy shit, this band's fucking awesome. Like I'm trying to explain it to my friends. I was like, I don't know what's going on. There's just too much going on.
It's like rapcore with chaos and metalcore and I don't even know.
Yeah. Like it's insane, so there's just so much like Foreign Hands, to open the Stick to Your Guns. And for me, it's really funny because like I'm old enough to have, everything that they're kind of cribbing from I was around for. So, like when I see them like selling a t-shirt with like a Stay Forward logo, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that band and brought them to Ashes and Poison the Well stuff like in there.
18 Visions, 7 Angels, 7 Plagues.
Yeah. So, but yeah, there's so much. It's hard to pick 3, but there's every week I'm finding something new to get excited about. And,
I'm happy. I'm so happy that because I know a lot of promoters that I've talked to are a bit maybe burnt a lot of times when they do it for 10 years or more, or even less sometimes. But to hear that you still like have so much love for music that you're just like, I want to bring this band. I want to bring this band. It's amazing.
Yeah. Like that, I think it was Hold Your Ground, that festival that happened like last week. Like all those bands, like I know I'd love to like bring a lot of those bands over, but sometimes there's not enough time in the day for me to chase them down. And I'm glad that someone's out there doing it and bringing like a Pain of Truth to Canada. I know Mind Force was supposed to be on there, and
Gridiron played.
Yeah, Gridiron. Yeah, there's just so much stuff. Like all those new hardcore bands, like all the stuff that's happening in California, like the Gulches and the Drains and all that stuff too is awesome.
Which Drain in October?
Yes.
So exciting.
Yeah. And so probably time this will probably come out when
Yeah.
like we have Koyo on that show
Hmm.
too. And we're gonna announce a band. We can actually put a local band on the show. Sacramento is gonna
Oh,
be on there.
Scaramanga is gonna play it.
Scaramanga.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. So they're gonna be on that. I should know like these names a bit better, but so yeah.
No, I like seeing Scaramanga. I've seen them twice now, and I know Jeremy from the scene, and he's like, such a nice guy.
Yeah, like a couple of guys in that band just are lifers, and they've
Yeah.
just been playing in music for so long. So, they're like, hey, can we play? I was like, hell yeah, you can play.
Like, aren't a couple of the guys are from Harrier? I
Yeah,
think.
and like I remember like booking their like previous like their old metalcore scene bands, like
Nice.
way back, when they all
That's
had the
awesome.
pineapple hair, and
Pineapple hair. Well, hearing how much love you have, I know that you're always busy and grinding, but how do you kind of detach from the constant madness?
I'm terrible. I don't, I really kind of like, for better or for worse, like it's like a 247 type of thing. But
Wow.
like obviously, like when I can, I find time to to relax. But it's like I feel like I'm always engaged,
Mhm.
and it's I'm always checking my phone, checking my email, and going to shows when I'm like not at my own shows, So music is just a huge part of my life. But like obviously I have other interests. I like to travel and stuff like that when I can. So, but yeah, like that's like usually how I'll disconnect is if when I travel. Like
Okay.
that's how I'll be like, okay, I can take a week, take 3 days, and just kind of try to not pay attention to shows. But it's hard. Full disclosure,
Where's your favorite place to travel to?
Probably like Japan. Like I discovered that like right before the pandemic. I went like 3 times in 2 years. Like I went. It's been like a dream since I was like a teenager to go, and I finally like sucked it up and went and just like lost my shit. And I was like, this place is the greatest place on earth, And then New York, just because I have friends there, and would go to shows there, and I just food's great there, and it's those are like my 2 kind of escape spots. And every couple of years I'll go out to LA, and same thing. Like a lot of the people I work with, I'm really, really, for lack of a better term, blessed that a lot of like the agents and managers I work with, I've known for the better part of the last 20 years, and like either they played in bands or they worked for bands and stuff like that. So when I could go out and catch up with them, been to their weddings, I've met their kids and stuff like that. So like if I can, get out there once every year or 2, that's always great. Like I really love that area as well. So those are like the ones that come to mind.
LA is fun to visit, not to live.
Yeah, I don't think. Most a lot of those places, like I remember a few years back, even New York, like I stayed for 3 weeks.
Oh.
And by the end of it, I was like, yeah, I'm done.
It's overstimulating. Just like,
I was like, one of my best friends lives there, and he lives like in the heart of Manhattan.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, I don't know how you do it. It cooks your brain. Like I found myself by the end of that trip, like my temper was super short. I like yelled at a woman in Trader Joe's, which is very unlike me. Like it's.
Wow.
Power to all the New Yorkers who can hack it and live there. It's seems like quite the grind.
It takes a certain type of person, I think.
Yeah.
Well, Dave, I've really enjoyed talking to you. Like I said, I'm a big Extensive Enterprise fan.
Thank you.
I'm a big music fan in general, so they go hand in hand. But yeah, thanks so much.
We try.
Thanks so much for taking time out of. I know how busy you are, so I appreciate you taking.
Hey, no
some
problem.
Time
It's great to talk about this stuff. I'm quite shy, and when people ask me and want to talk to me about what I do, like I'm always taken aback. I was like, what do I got to say? What do I got to? That's like interesting,
It's the backbone of the music scene. That's it. What you do is the unseen kind of. People don't realize how much goes into it.
And I'm lucky that I have the city has so many great concert goers that have like supported me for so long, and really have allowed me to like make this a full-time living, and allowed me to bring bands that I'm a huge fan of. Like it's because of people coming to shows that I'm able to keep doing shows. So to everybody who's ever bought a ticket, I thank you, and hopefully we can go for another 20 years and keep bringing all these great, awesome bands that keep popping up to Montreal and keep this. We're really lucky. We have a really great, for lack of a better word, scene. And I feel really, really spoiled to be able to do shows every week and have hundreds of kids come out and support all sorts of different genres of heavy music. So thank you to everybody.
I think one of the most impactful things I've seen was that it was the Devil Wears Prada, but Drew York from Straight from the Path is on stage, and he's like, Montreal is one of our favorite cities to play in the world, and that's thanks to Dave. And I think the whole like sold out bottom starts chanting Dave.
Yeah. super, super embarrassing.
I was like,
people try to do people are doing it again and stick to your guns, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you're gonna have to start like coming out and like waving like the Queen.
give a little speech. But I'm super lucky that I have these amazing relationships with certain bands like Straight from the Past and Stick to Your Guns and the Rest in Peace the Every Time I Dies and Springs Red, where we're Between the Buried and Me, like these bands we start working together when some of these bands had demo tapes or first records and they were like just starting to tour, and here we are 10 15 years later still working together, and that's like probably the most rewarding part, is to just get your hands in on a young band, and it's something I like and I'm passionate about, and I can help them get to a point where they can headline these big rooms and come back every year or two. That's just the best feeling in the world for me.
It's amazing. Before we go, I have one last question for you.
Yes.
What's your favorite city for beans and breakdowns?
Beans and breakdowns. I feel like the breakdowns are in one city and the beans are in the next. I mean,
split it if you want. It's okay.
I mean,
there's no wrong answers.
I guess New York, when I was talking about that trip where I stayed in Greenpoint, that's where I stayed at a friend's apartment, and coffee up there is quite great. And then you have bands that like Incendiary, who originally from Long Island, but most of those guys live in Greenpoint, so that's that's a great beans and breakdown town. So I think we'll go with Brooklyn Greenpoint area.
Did you get to see some shows when you were out there?
I saw. What did I see? I went to a Bad Religion show.
Nice.
It was one of those retrospective type of shows. God, this is a few years ago, so
okay.
So I'm trying really hard. I definitely went to a couple of Vitus things.
See, I've never been to St. Vitus, but I've seen so many videos. It's
fun. A very, very cool venue. And now they're starting to do stuff outside of their venue as a production company. Cool. So that's awesome. But yeah, I saw Judge there, not on that trip, but when I'm going there for Comic-Con in a few weeks, and while I'm there, Full of Hell and Blood Incantation are playing. So
that's amazing.
I can't that tour was supposed to come to Canada, and for whatever reason it didn't work out. But I'm gonna get to see it. And then L7 is also playing in that hood. So being a 44-year-old person coming up through grunge, I'm that was kind of my first, when I got fanatical about music and really was a music lover, was the alt rock explosion. So when I can still see those bands, they have a special place in my heart. So, but yeah, I'm trying to think of other awesome Vitus shows I saw there, and I'm completely blanking, but very cool venue. Awesome staff too.
Yeah, it just has kind of that chain reaction style of legacy, I think, where it's just helped so much local music.
Exactly, and bands who could headline a venue 10 times the size want to play there.
Choose to go there because of the legacy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's amazing.
It's great.
Well, Dave, thanks so much again for hanging out. It's been
my pleasure. Thank you so much. This is awesome. Thank you.
I feel like I've learned so much about the scene that I didn't know before, only being in Montreal for 4 years. So
there you go.
Thanks for your wisdom.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Well, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Hope to see you soon.
Yes, sounds good. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Beans and Breakdowns. I want to say a huge thanks to Dave for taking time out of his insanely busy schedule to be on the podcast. It was awesome getting to chat with him. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. You can also find out more information about the podcast by following us on Instagram at Beans and Breakdowns or on the web at beansandbreakdowns.com. Until next week, be sure to stay caffeinated and wake the fuck up.